Hi, welcome to Endgame, Stage VR. This talk today is with Jack, who recently made the viral YouTube video. I spent a week in a VR headset, and here's what happened. All right.
Yay!
Of
course, PK was featured in the film, and I wasn't surprised. It was awesome to see he was in the film. And also, just to remind people, so this is a group discussion, so we want everyone to participate. And if you have questions and stuff, so you can line up at the center. If you have something longer to say, or use the exclamation point emoji repeatedly if you have something quick to say. Yeah. So with that being said, yeah, welcome, Jack. We're excited to have you. We watched your video, and it was pretty interesting. I guess we have a bunch of questions for you, but I guess, like, one thing for anyone who hasn't seen the video, can you briefly describe what you did, and maybe also can you talk about, like, why you did it, kind of just like the background a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. The idea was to just really, like, try to explore the depths of VR. I've been really interested in it over the past few years, and I kind of wanted to do something extreme that would, on one hand, get attention, but also try to kind of introduce the general public to VR itself in sort of an easy-to-digest format.
Were you an early adopter of VR? Like, what was the earliest you got into it?
So it was about 2016 with the first 5.
And what prompted you to do that film and to stay in VR for that long?
Well, I had originally seen someone do like 24 hours in the headset on YouTube.
Okay.
And the idea
like, that's
wasn't
weak
necessarily
sauce. I can do better than that.
Yeah. I mean, the idea wasn't necessarily to, like, say, oh, I could spend a week in VR, look at me, but more as just a test of really what it would do, mentally and physically, and if it was possible to remain productive and really explore.
It certainly seems like it was, like, pushing some limits there. Like, and you said that you were trying to explore the depths of it. Do you feel like a week in the headset sufficiently allowed you to explore those depths?
I only got to experience a handful of stuff. I think, as everyone here knows, like, there's so much in VR, even in these early days. So I do feel like I kind of was able to get a broad spectrum, like anything from entertainment to education, trying to just explore those different, industries and facets that VR can fill. That being said, I think, there's so much content to explore even nowadays.
So you didn't get to reach all the content that you liked, do you think? Or do you feel like you got a really good sampling?
I think there's still some caves to be explored in VR.
That's a good way to put it.
And also, like, so in VR, at least for medical purposes, people have read online and on some research articles this arbitrary limit of 20 minutes. And I guess Catapult was also mentioning that that's something that's often used for, like, any eyesight looking at screens and stuff. But I mean, did you do any research into, or were you concerned about, like, the kind of health effects of being in VR for that period of time, or just kind of experimenting on yourself? Like, what was your risk perception going into it?
Yeah, it was a pretty reckless approach, I'm not gonna lie. I just kind of had the idea and went into it. That being said, I was pretty surprised how minimal the physical effects were. I was expecting to get a lot of eye burn. And when I did get some eye strain, what I would do is just kind of, like, take a break for 30 minutes with the headset still on, but kind of close my eyes and kind of recenter my thoughts as well as my body, and that helped a lot.
I know that
No, I was just going to say, so out of the whole experience of having been in VR for that long, what was the thing that surprised you the most about the experience that you maybe didn't expect?
Yeah, it's a great question. The main thing I was worried about starting it was kind of being isolated. I'm a pretty introverted guy, but the prospect of being constrained to a headset, like, it scared me a lot before going into it. And so throughout, when I would experience kind of those feelings of, like, whether it be social isolation or even like claustrophobia, what I would do is just jump onto like a game like VRChat or AltSpace or any of the other social applications. And what really surprised me is that I was able to kind of fulfill that innate human need we all have for social interaction, whether it be with friends or family, through VR. It's funny, by the end of it, I felt more social in the headset than I am really out in the real world.
Really?
I experienced that.
Yeah.
Did you predict that would happen? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, just
No,
that
no,
resonates
no.
with me because people are easy to interact with in the metaverse. Like you're
Yeah.
free from so much context, and then so you have to kind of collaboratively create your own context.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see.
So did your
Blue...
I just one more question.
Yeah.
So the people that you didn't interact with, namely in the real world, what was their reaction knowing that you were sort of not available to them during this 1 week? Did it have an impact?
I think mainly the people that, like, I'll just use my mom as an example. She would
Please
kind of
do.
like check in with me, send send your Facebook
Did you ever
quick
call?
messages or even calls.
Did you
So,
ever do that thing where you
there were
video
ways I
call
could kinda
from
connect with
VR,
people
but you
outside.
couldn't call someone in real life?
So I did a Skype call, but I wasn't able to get my camera working,
Oh.
unfortunately.
I didn't know
Um,
that
But it was
you
funny
can do
kind of like
that.
seeing
In
it.
Facebook, yeah.
Do that in
Facebook.
Spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Facebook
Oh.
Spaces, like they'll let you have a virtual
Oh,
camera
that's
that
interesting.
you can make video calls. It's pretty cool. Like it's, the platform has pros and cons. That's definitely one of the
Yeah.
benefits to it, I think.
I
I've
see
been interfacing
Blue.
Somebody
with
has a question now.
Blue, did you have a question? You can come up to into the circle.
Yes. Scatman. So after your week in VR, did you have a sort of I guess refractory period where you didn't want to be in VR, or trying to adapt being able to navigate your normal living space after spending your entire time like in the virtual realm navigating by memory?
What was that like?
Yeah, good question. I was actually really surprised how straightforward the transition back to reality was. The first hour or so, my eyes were kind of adjusting, but after that, I mean, I hopped in my car and picked up my dog from a friend that was watching her, and just went out to the first hour.
Little stumbling
What do you mean
around.
by adjusting.
The readjustment.
What do you mean by adjusting? Your eyes were adjusting for an hour?
And yeah. So I think they were so used to kind of being in 60 to 90 FPS that it was the strangest experience, like moving fluid. My brain was
There's
almost
so much fidelity
still
in the
thinking it was
world.
in VR. And,
Wow.
No screen door
That's
effect
all
unless
right.
you're looking through a screen
Actually-
door.
high fidelity. Yeah.
When you came out of VR, I really got the sense that you looked around and you said, "Wow, the resolution! The smells, I mean, that there was something that you were kind of amazed about." Could you talk about that? Because I found that really interesting.
Absolutely. So I found throughout, like, when you're playing VR and you don't really notice the FOV, the black just sort of goes away and you're focused on what you're seeing. And immediately taking it off, that was the first thing, is like this wide field of view.
The field of view.
Yeah, that view is
Wow.
amazing. We have really good eyes, but sort of the light fields as well, like seeing the pixels in the headset right now, and then seeing just like how clear everything was. It was a very hard thing to describe, but when you have a long VR session, it's like that.
Yeah, I noticed in the video, like you kept making allusions to the Matrix, but like the Matrix is an idea that's, I mean, it's kind of tangential to the concept of the metaverse, like as this platform that we all can live in virtually. But the Matrix goes even deeper, right? To your all of your perceptions and your sense of smell, your sense of touch, like everything like that. Do you think we're on our way to that? Or do you think people will want
You know,
that?
I think just by nature of our patterns as a species, like we always want the next most immersive thing, whether it be, like, small screen TVs and then plasma screens and then, IMAX and so on. And I think, yeah, we'll eventually get to the point where VR is, indistinguishable from reality, and I think that will bring great benefits, whether it be communication, creativity, but it'll also bring, the inevitable downsides.
If that's the case though, like if I unplug from the Matrix and I'm let down by the fidelity of the real world, like if the virtual world becomes more intense and more, has even more immersion and more like sensory input. I mean, you talked about having this appreciation for nature and the energy in it. Do you think it's, I don't know, this was kind of like my ideas watching it too, was like, could we ever, are we ever, how attached are we to our environment? Is it just through our senses, or are we attached in like a real physical way?
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe that we are sort of connected to the earth. I mean, it's a living organism almost, and we're on it. That being said, it's I think it's always interesting to kind of think of our technology, our cities, our buildings as, nature itself. I mean, we are from the earth, and what we create is natural in a way.
Yeah,
but it does disconnect us in a way as well as nature. So I think, though, that we're becoming more conscious of these discussions, and this technology is so new, and I think us being aware of that difference of technology and nature itself will help us, kind of find balances.
I think so. I want to get to where Skeletal was there too, I guess, but I don't know where, and Pika. But I do want to mention two things. One, what's interesting about nature is that we had an episode about AI. We've had several episodes now about how AI and the extraction of resources that's required to actually experience technology. So it's definitely like more removed, but it's definitely all of these experiences are directly connected to nature, especially in terms of our impact, but also to Popopo's point about what happens if the fidelity gets so good that people want to live in here instead of the real world. I think right now with VR chat and other social VR, people are having social experiences that are tapping into senses of self that they haven't been able to have in the real world. So it's already starting, even with the low fidelity of like the N64 quality compared to where we'll be with like Xbox One, it's already happening that people are preferring the virtual world over the real one. So that's something that's actually happening now. Which
from a related angle, I read a sci-fi book recently that it was talking about the destruction of our environment and how like humans are just constantly, like you said, we're consuming the resources, we're killing off tons of species by taking their habitat and changing pH balances, so like in this book, the only way to save the earth and to save all the creatures on it was for humanity to leave, and the way they left was to transmute themselves into a virtual space, and they could exist like on Earth, but like in a different layer, in like a digital virtual layer. And I thought that was like a pretty compelling idea. Yeah, because it like takes our consciousness and it abstracts it away from where we came from, to an entirely new type of living. And I hope it's not that, like, I hope that's not what's required in order to like cohabitate with our environment. But I guess you never know.
Pika, and also Skeletal, I saw you were in line before for a while, so if you want to.
Yeah, I apologize. I just want to make sure somebody was able to talk with me for just a moment. But yeah, go ahead and let Pika Pika first.
I do have a question that's related to like the whole like,
and I like burgers,
sense of self. All right, so I know because I watched you live during the experiment, and all my coworkers were like, "Why are you watching this guy in the VR headset all day, like at work?" And I was just like, "Hey, no, it's cool." But anyways, so when you were doing VR, I know you had like pass through, so you could actually like see your arms and stuff, when you worked out and you did your dishes and stuff like that. But was there at any moment during your time when you like your self-image of yourself like started to shift because like I would really like to see like how someone's psychology would be if like like I spent a week in VR chat as a lolly avatar and here's my self-image. This is what it did to me. Like what like would that do anything? Like did you experience any dissociation?
Yeah.
Yeah, did your yeah.
Yeah, great thought. So it's funny, leading up to the experiment, I've been doing a lot of sort of meditation and sort of the observation of self and trying to really almost view the body as a vessel. So the experiment, there were points throughout where, yeah, like I would see the pass-through camera, I would see my arms, but they were just that. I was just watching them almost from a third-person perspective. So I would say I did experience dissociation, but it wasn't like an anxiety disassociation. I've been very blessed that I've never experienced that, but it was points throughout where it was almost like imagining oneself as viewing their body.
And the last point you made in the video was that you were looking around at the people in the real world, and it was like they were avatars. And then, of course they're not, they're people, but and I think there was further discussion in the comment section of the video of like how of whether there is any substantial difference between an avatar and a body. That seems related to what you were mentioning earlier about the body being a vessel, because like we can customize either of them, to certain extents, but we don't. We actually have more control over our self-expression in an avatar than in a body. I don't know. What do you have any thoughts about like how that self-expression, like the ability to change your shape according to what you want, does that have any relation to your identification with, like, could someone identify with their avatar more than their body because they can express themselves more with it?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's an interesting sort of psychological link there. Like when when you have an avatar and you don't exactly like it, right? And you kind of feel like you're not yourself until you find that one avatar that you like. I think that can also be applied to like real life and whether it be like body image issues and kind of being able to not specifically associate the sense of self with the body.
I mean, but even with the human, like, you can only go a certain extent. Like, I'm trapped in a human body, in my meat body, in meat space. Like, whatever, I've forsaken that now. I need to be an insect. That's where it's really at.
But also, you weren't...
yeah.
Yeah, Ghoster, did you do something quick?
The full week in VR thing. Did you ever experience a time, either during the experiment or after, that you tried moving using your thumb? Because you'd be in VR so long, you're trying to use your VR controller to move.
Thankfully I didn't experience that during the week. I remember when I first got into VR, though. Yeah, like I would try to grab my cup with like the grip buttons on the Vive. I wasn't there. So it's fun.
Oh my god.
Skeleton? Skeleton?
Why is there so many people here?
Hello. How are we doing there, Jack? I absolutely loved the video, and I decided to go ahead and look at the rest of the series. I saw some of the amazing things that you showed where you talked to others in different games about subjects in terms of like what happens after death and other things like that. One of the other topics you had was in regards to VR and sex, or porn, actually. And it was brilliant because Psych Popolo here also had a talk that was in regards to VR and relationships dealing with sex in VR. One of the things that we talked about was the fact that the industry, as far as VR goes, in order to help expand it, one of the major components was bringing in the porn industry, which helped Betamax, which helped the internet grow, or not Betamax, VHS and other industries like that grow in terms of technology. So coming from that, you talked mainly about the porn side of things and the adult industry. Do you also see that VR could be the way that people interact interact while they are away from each other and can still have intimate relationships, having never met each other in real life.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're already seeing that with, you know, a lot of the technologies that are coming out. I'm not too well adversed in that industry itself, but I do think I think we're seeing almost more of an acceptance of even like online social relationships, which I think is really rad.
I met I
have a friend
I met the person I'm currently dating through VR chat, actually, and I'm still dating them 6 months afterwards. I think seeing what you were talking about, wearing VR for a full week, could say that a lot of people would get so used to the idea of putting on a headset to just simply talk with their loved ones, whether it be intimate or family, and being able to do that in such a way, especially with hands and such, and being able to be whatever creature thing they wish to be, and then having that intimacy like that. I saw during that you said that things like the sense of smell, of being able to smell nature, to feel the heat of the sun and things like that, were what felt like missing. But lo and behold, we have portable VR coming out, the Quest, and you are constantly wearing that new Vive headset in your videos. You think there'll be people literally sitting outside, living on their back porches, basically
smelling nature,
talking with family members, being able to be in nature but still in VR.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with any new technology, especially one that you know, is gonna change the world, we can almost look to the previous technology. So like smartphones, you know, I think 50 years ago, no one could have predicted that people would be living in nature, but also using the computer. So I think they'll definitely, you know, be that level of going outside, but also being plugged in.
Thanks, Skeleton.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question.
Manchetti?
All right, Manchetti. We cannot hear you if you're talking. Oh, right, just
yeah,
for a
if
second.
you want to figure out, if you want to figure out your mic, we'll let you know if we can hear you. Yeah. Okay, Catapult.
Scatman, when you decided to finally end your day and decide it was time for sleep, what did you do? Put yourself into a dark place with the screens in VR?
Oh yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, good question. So I would have the Oculus Go, which was a lot more comfortable and lighter. Then for most nights, I would just load up like the Netflix app and put in like the Void Theater, because I like falling to sleep with, you know, like TV show or something. So that was pretty nice, you know, be able to have like a screen wherever you want in your own personal theater, and the headset then would shut off when it wouldn't detect any movement. Yeah.
Nice. The other thing too is you turned an old joke of mine, and you turned it into a reality. I used to always say, you know, you're addicted to VR when you dream you're in VR and you wake up and you're in VR. So basically, what was it like? Like if you were in a deep sleep and you wake up and you got something going on in your eyes. Whoa, what the heck is this? Kind of thing, without realizing, you know, until you snap out of it.
Disorienting?
Yeah, it was. It was very disorienting. Like one dream specifically, I remember it was, you know, people that I had been talking to in virtual reality in real life, and then they made an appearance again in the dream virtual reality, and then waking up again, and the headset is just like I'm either descending levels now, or, you know, ascending levels, either one. I don't know.
No, I'm curious too. Did you dream, and if so, what were your? Oh, you mentioned having dreams about virtual reality, but what were they like? What were they? I don't know. Do you dream about virtual reality when you're out of VR, or how is it different?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of I do have a pretty active dream life for some reason. But during the experience itself, a lot of the dreams were like UI. I specifically remember like opening a UI almost in like a Gary's Mod type game, and building stuff and interacting with my friends throughout.
That's cool.
I just have a quick question. So you're wearing headsets, various, and you're switching them out. But what about the comfort part of it? I mean, I'm imagining wearing a headset for a week, and it just gives me a headache to think about it.
Yeah, that sounds
So
kind of
did,
miserable.
how did
The
you
box
handle
you
that
have when
part?
showering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was by the end of it, it was definitely, I was ready to get out, but I found switching the headsets helps because they all have a different, shape. So funny enough, the only time I experienced like real discomfort was when I was doing like a karaoke night with some friends, and we were all smiling, and so the headset like would press against the cheeks and made my face all swell.
Wow, smiling too much. She smiled so much, even though you were alone in real life.
That's kind of sad. Oh.
That's great.
And just one last
Punished for being
comment.
happy.
And just one last comment. I just want to say congratulations on achieving your goal that you set out to do. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that the editing. I also just want to say the editing of that documentary
Editing
was
is
unbelievable. I mean,
beautiful.
it was just so well done. And also, did you
Is there a
use?
background?
Oh, did you use the thing from Century of Self as well? The music from Century of Self? Couldn't remember.
I'm not familiar with
would also
that.
use. Oh, okay. I know Little Poe used that in his documentary, but I thought I heard it in. Yeah.
Are you a filmmaker? Like, what is your background? Like, why was the video so good?
Why was it so
Yeah.
good?
I started out doing like machinimas, so all throughout middle school and high school, I just kind of locked myself away in the room, and yeah.
So this is a natural progression to do that just in VR.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great.
That's great.
Shellcroft?
Okay.
Hi, it's Shellfoot.
Shalefoot, oh my god, I'm sorry. I just saw Shale and then I just came up with the Croft. I don't know where that came from.
No worries. I just wanted to go back to the topic of your self-image, because I kind of use VR as an escape, and I've nowhere near been in VR for an entire week consecutively, but I do use it practically every day, and I always, like, it was really silly, this kind of stigma I had in my head. I actually was scared to look at myself in the mirror after using the VR because I had gotten so used to being my avatar that I was scared I wasn't going to like what I saw in the mirror. But I just wanted to know, like, did you have any doubts about yourself when you came out of VR, about your self-image?
That's a great question. I would say earlier on, I did have a lot of self-image issues, even like eating disorders, way back like 5-10 years ago. And over the past couple of years, I've been trying to really get over that. So thankfully, I didn't experience that, but I can relate to that.
Mm-hmm. That's all I had to
I
say.
love your
Thank you.
avatar, by the way.
Thank
The
you.
shimmering color, that is lovely.
Yeah, this is on VRC Mods in
great.
case anyone wants it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah. Owlboy?
Hey, old boy.
Hello. I guess I got a few comments that are small. First, the description says it starts with "We put a guy in VR." Who's we?
Yeah, great question. So Disrupt is a company I started with a friends, and so we're sort of like a collective of editors and video gamers. So.
Okay.
cool.
What percentage of time did you spend in looking through pass-through mode? Because personally, I don't consider that VR, but
It's
whatever.
more AR,
It's
yeah.
a matter of opinion.
He
But
had a
how much?
justification
What
for that in the
percentage of time
video.
was the pass-through? Oh, I didn't get a chance to look through the whole video yet. Sorry. So there's
that's
that.
Yeah, it's all good. I would say it was probably a solid 50-50 split.
Oh,
Okay.
wow, really?
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I truly believe that AR and VR will eventually become synonymous in,
Yeah.
in the way that you can
The
switch between the
imagery-
two.
The imagery you used of like the equipment, going from the headset to the goggles to the glasses to the contact lenses, like that was super cool.
Yeah, and to the
I-
brain. that's one thing that I also like. Kurzweil at least predicts that we're going. He's predicting a lot of stuff. Predicts that we're actually going to just be able to have with nanotechnology, we'll be able to think and just go into VR. So you mentioned that, yeah, the contact lenses. I thought that when you said that, I was like, oh, but the next step after that is the brain. So, but yeah, sorry, but what were you?
Oh, just Endgame is about like the future of humanity, and you also kind of like a lot of what we discuss is stuff that you kind of mentioned or were adjacent to in your video, and so I'm curious about how far you think we are from the future. Like you called it like a week in the future at one point too. Like how far away are we actually from meeting VR's potential?
Yeah, I think we're really close. I mean, the idea, like, trying to explain this concept, like us being able to talk in real time with full body tracking in a room full of amazing people, even 20 years ago, I would never have believed. So I think it's almost like our rate of acceleration and technological advancement is just getting faster and faster in a short amount of time. So
makes sense.
Yeah, it's like we're on this just wave that's accelerating. Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, Elboy, did you have another one?
Oh, I had one more like kind of meta comment. I've noticed that most of the questions tonight from the audience have been questions that are kind of projections of their experiences in VR, seeing if you've experienced it too, along with things that they expect that such an experience in VR would feel like. Is that something very common to how people have been interacting with you about this video?
Yeah, when people ask in VR, it's definitely along those lines, which I love. But people outside, I think it's almost like a surprise to them that the technology is where it is now. So it's a lot of questions of like, what is VR like? Yeah, what does it feel like? And what that was about.
Okay,
that's interesting. I also have I have just a couple questions, and I see we have a line. You guys can move forward if you want towards the center. If you want, I just had a question, I guess, about your mood and how you felt. So one thing is about social VR versus non-social VR, and then the other is that in general, like living in general requires like a range of mood. Like if you're always feeling happy or sometimes feeling down, or if you're always feeling happy or positive, like that can be even a negative thing sometimes. So did mood fluctuate in the same way as it does in real life, or did it was your mood changing in a different way in VR? But then also the question about social versus non-social.
That's a really good question. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did experience a lot of mood shifts during the first few days. It felt almost like these micro episodes, nothing too extreme, but it was almost like the emotions that you would feel throughout a day, I would feel depending on what experience I put in the headset. But what was nice is I was able to kind of manage those moods with different experiences. So if I was feeling, depressed or anxious, I would just kind of go into a nature area and just relax for 30 minutes. Or if I was feeling, energetic, to just work out. It was almost like managing the moods with the technology.
So you could choose your experiences. Interesting. And then what about social versus non-social? Was there a particular way that social particularly influenced your mood, or you tried to use it to influence your mood, or you said towards the end you were spending more time in social? So I'm just curious about that part.
Yeah, it was interesting. Sometimes I would go in like a social experience and talk with some amazing people, and it would be a great time. And other times it was just, I just found myself kind of like drifting through these worlds, not really interacting with anyone. And so it was kind of like the energy that I put into it is what I got out of it, which I guess is the same as real life.
Yeah. That's cool. Catapult has a quick comment?
Yeah, when you mentioned that people within VR would understand what you were doing or what you did, and people outside of VR didn't. It's kind of like what I always tell everybody. You don't know VR until you've tried VR.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that.
Kiwi Maka?
So I didn't watch your video, and I apologize that I didn't watch that. But I was curious if you ever developed any phantom sense, or if someone touched you in VR, were you able to feel something outside of VR?
Nothing too extreme. I remember Pika and I were hanging out. We were just like messing around. He was showing the animations, and we gave each other a hug. And it was like the first hug I'd have in like a week. It felt like a real hug, so it was great.
That's something that
nothing
we've
like phantom
mentioned.
touch.
Yeah, it's something, I don't know, it's probably pretty context dependent, but some people like really feel they feel a sensation of some kind when they're touched, especially with someone they're close to, and it's like yeah, it can be pretty intense at times, depending on who's involved, I think, which I think goes back to the like just the immersive and the human connection that you mentioned before too, because I get so much more information about a person in this medium. Yeah, like even this way, like your demeanor is so much more different than I expected from you know, just the images of you that I saw in the video. Like even though you showed your like just kind of how you were living, going about your day, I got a very different sense of your personality than like in like a real space talking to you. You're more chill than I expected.
Yeah.
I hope that's okay. Are you? Yeah.
Glad to hear.
Yeah, it's cool.
Alright, this is kind of more YouTuber to YouTuber. So congrats on getting your play button. Have they contacted you yet?
Oh,
Jack.
Sorry, I'm lagging out, guys. Can you hear me right now?
Yes,
yeah,
you can.
okay.
Do you know how to turn on the safety? Do you know about the safety features? If you turn it on, I guess it's hard to actually do it easily, but
Okay.
yeah. If you go to safety,
Okay,
and then,
go to
yeah.
we're gonna do a troubleshooting session here.
go to
Yeah.
safety and hit maximum. It's tough for a lot of stuff.
I think
Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah.
Good to
Okay.
go.
Cool.
Okay, so I've noticed like a lot of I mean I was when your video dropped, I wasn't there for the premiere, but like I was jaw dropped because I've been following you since you had like 5,000 subs, I think. Yeah. So anyways, and that's why I ran it met up with you in on Friday when you were in VR chat, because I just wanted to talk to you about VR because you seemed really enthusiastic. But
Wait, what's the?
I've noticed on the comments on a lot of your video that you dropped, because the YouTube algorithm picked it up and it went viral. There's some people that are kind of excited, and then there's a lot of people that are very, very skeptical about like if this is the future, like, you know, I don't really want any part of it. Like,
I think it's just a fad.
I know that you get all of the analytics, because I also get that on my channel. Do you ever plan on like addressing fears in those type of comments in the future, like displaying the analytics of like these are the people that reacted positively, these are the people that reacted, you know, negatively. Let's address the negativity about it, and you know, and almost like a weighing a pro and con of it. Because I was being in the VR sphere and like being in the VR industry and thinking about this technology like day in and day night, I almost like forget the outside perspective almost. So
Yeah.
I'm like, because I enjoy it, and
Okay, so
you know, it's very natural to think everyone else should enjoy it too, but you know, some people don't.
People, yeah, like what's the ratio of positivity to negativity, and what's your response to negativity about it?
Absolutely. I mean, I even myself share some of the maybe negative thoughts of it, as well as the positive thoughts of it. At its very essence, it's a technology that is so immersive. It's the most immersive thing we've ever seen as a race. So I think it's natural that there are those that would maybe want to push it away or even not want anything to do with it. I think kind of what I've been trying to do is really try to isolate specific maybe concerns that people have and really expand on them, like whether it be sort of the idea of being trapped, like in a Sword Art Online style.
I'm looking forward to that video.
And really, kind of
really excited.
Thanks. Yeah, but kind of like just trying to explore these different topics, whether it be negative or positive, is what I find it will at least be conclusive to
Interesting. Well,
advancement in the industry.
Cool. So I see we're Sulfur. Did you have a question?
Yeah, towards the end of your video, I believe you were talking about how, like, when you finally took off the headset, you had felt like seeing other people were almost NPCs. How long do you think that effect lasted after done with your experiment?
Absolutely. So, the concept of viewing people as NPCs, it's more almost like the statement was almost like an awareness of individuality and how each person is their own person inhabiting a body, and they're like looking at you through their eyes. I'm looking at you through my eyes through a headset, and almost like it felt like an awareness of the intrinsic reality that we all have, and adversely an awareness of the sort of that conscious state that we all have when we close our eyes.
This is talked about in philosophy too, about how we are like one of the problems and like defining pieces of our nature is that we're so isolated from each other. Like whether we're in VR, whether in real life, like to some extent, and I can empathize with you, but at some point I can't see inside you. You're like a black box. And I think VR, it sounds like your experience in VR kind of helped present a different angle on that same situation of our reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cows?
Hey,
Is it
desktop
Chaos?
user here. What's up?
Oh, Chaos.
Hello.
So what's your... So I had a question, because a lot of people like to go for VR chat for their social interactions, especially amongst the furry community, I've noticed. But what was your favorite social VR app?
I'm going to be diplomatic and say I like all of them.
No.
No, okay. How about
Be
this then?
honest.
How about talk about one of
No, wait.
strengths? No,
wait,
what were the strengths
wait, let him.
of each?
And then also, what
Yeah,
was
I
your
mean,
favorite?
so yeah, I like Altspace specifically because it has like the events that
Because
sort
it
of-
has what? I'm sorry.
It has a what?
It has sort of events specific to someone's interest, right? So I think it covers like a really broad range. Adversely, I like VR chat because it's almost like infinite. It feels there's so many worlds and the customization. So yeah, I found myself spending more time in Altspace though.
Interesting. With the events and stuff like that.
Right.
Interesting. Wow.
And
Yeah.
just a comment, I actually just recently watched that video, and I just joined a friend and didn't even realize what I was joining, but I thought that was really cool of you to actually spend a week in VR. Just wanted to make that comment.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate you watching.
Yeah. And I also,
Well,
after
make sure we're
Skeletos...
reporting back
Yeah, and thank you
so
for
that we
being on
can
the
all
show.
hear about it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
after
appreciate
Skeletos'
it.
comment, I also want to take a poll. I kind of want to get a sense of like the longest that people have spent in VR and what our kind of distribution is. So I just kind of want to ask some questions, and we can use emojis to respond. But Skeleto,
Okay,
yeah,
let's do Skeleto first.
Well, funny kind of segue into that. I actually wanted to mention something. Now that I got my trackers back on, I personally am a VR chat streamer. And one of the things I did do after watching one of your videos was I like the idea of doing VR chat full body for 24 hours. So I couldn't do 7 days. I'm sorry. That's a little out of my ability. But for 24 hours, I kept these trackers charged using battery packs. I would charge the trackers with, take off, let them charge, let the battery or let the chargers trackers go die, and then rinse and repeat. My controllers are actually Oculus controllers, so I could replace the batteries on those very easily, and I'm tethered on my Oculus headset. So doing 24 hours of standing, talking with people, interacting with people was something that I was able to stream and show off. And what I found was, even after taking the headset off after all that, and having more than just 15 minutes of a bathroom break to be out and about, I actually did have moments where when I would walk around, I would look down at the ground to look for like a line for my boundaries, because that's how I do mine. I don't have walls. Same thing with, I would, like for example, right now I have some tiles that I can feel on the ground and know where I'm at in my play space. So I always feel for those on my feet. When I didn't feel that, I would become lost. It's very interesting being in that VR space. That does your sense of perception, what you feel around you, what your world around you become, has completely shifted, changed around you, because now you no longer have a thought, oh, that thing's really far over there, or your sensory says it's over there. Now it's like, oh wait, there's 10 by 10 room here now. It's not nearly as wide anymore. It's like stepping into the difference between a room with a cathedral ceiling and a room with like an apartment ceiling.
The word for your sense of where your body is at any given moment, by the way, is called proprioception. And yeah, I think it can be a little disrupted by VR. It sounds like, yeah, your visceral experience of navigating a virtual space, that changes your relationship with your physical environment. That makes sense.
Did you feel much the same after being in for 7?
Yeah, I mean, the strangest thing was going outside, and it like you mentioned, it in the headset it's infinite, like these vast rooms, but there was still like this strange, almost transcendental experience going outside and seeing the sun rise again, and
everything's so big.
It was like being confined while it's like being confined but not being confined in the headset.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Makes sense.
Interesting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Skeletor.
Thanks, Skelto.
Yeah, great.
So,
All right.
So yeah,
do you want to do like a
I want to
few
get
questions?
yeah. So I just want to ask. So basically, we're gonna use our emojis and do thumbs up and thumbs down because we're getting towards the end of the show because we tend to go about an hour, and I want to do some emoji. I just want to get a sense of people and how long you guys. What's the longest time that you've spent in VR? So
let's start
first,
with,
and
Are we going
basically
for total hours played or total consecutive?
Well, let's.
So we're going for. We're going for consecutive hours, and what I want to do is, if you haven't, when I ask the question, so I'm gonna start at like 1 hour and then 5 hours and keep going up. But if I ask if you haven't done that, so do thumbs up if you've spent that long, at least that long in VR. If you haven't and you've only spent a lower amount of time, do thumbs down. So you'll have to keep doing thumbs down, but we'll see like what the ratio is as we get higher and higher. So, all right. So first, how many people? So thumbs up or thumbs down for people who have spent an hour or more consecutively in VR. I'm assuming that this is most of us, but
yeah.
Okay.
All
right, so just one person.
Which happens.
That's you. If you're you can. All right. So what about 5 hours or longer consecutively in VR?
And then thumbs down if that's never happened. Okay. Well, just a few people haven't done that. All right. Okay.
All right. What about 10 hours or longer consecutively in VR? Ooh, wow. So that's impressive that nearly half of us, I think, have. I've never spent that long in VR, but okay. What about like 15 hours? I feel like that's a. Okay.
Okay, it's still a good number
Wow.
though.
Still got like
Can I ask one other,
20 hours.
Question: Can it be sleeping?
Yeah.
Or does it have to be active?
Yeah, we'll count that. I
Okay.
guess. Yeah.
Sleeping is allowed then.
So it's wait, what was the last? I said 20 hours already.
You said
I think?
15.
15,
yeah.
20 hours. What about 20 hours?
Okay, 20 hours.
And he's going to spend. Oh my god! Wow.
Ooh.
All right, 24 hours.
24?
24 hours.
Okay. 3
And then
people.
okay, so I don't even 36 hours. I mean,
32? Oh, 36?
I don't know 32. I mean.
Okay,
All
Skeletor,
right, so
Skeletor's
did the
got the lead
so
here.
did the people
Wait, I saw some
Skeleto and
thumbs
who's the other person? I know, yeah. So the people
Yeah,
who
Skeletor.
does
Maybe
anyone
another person
does
over here.
anyone who does anyone who spent like many hours in VR want to come forward and just kind of say like, was your experience similar to what Jack's been talking about so far? Is it different? Like, how did you end up spending that? I mean, Skeletor, you mentioned you spent 24 hours, and does anyone else who spent a long time in VR have any thoughts about this?
Kiwi, were you the
Yeah,
one
Kiwi, we saw.
also that said 36 or whatever? You want to share what might have been different or similar about your experiences? Were there any differences that you would find notable?
Not really. It's just something I just spend a lot of time in VR, and sometimes you just forget time exists on the outside of it, I guess.
You go for 36 hours.
Like something
It's true, you lose track of time.
Yeah, Freeman, you had
easy. Other comment about mine, but yeah.
Yeah, Skeletor, and then Freeman. I want to hear from you about your experiences.
So with mine, one of the major things I wanted to make sure was different from just going into regular VR, like putting on the headset and the controllers, was doing the full body. And standing up for that long, that hurt. But it wasn't necessarily just standing the entire time, of course, going to the restroom and such and getting something to eat. But no matter what, I was always moving around. And I'm a dancer as well, so I would be dancing, all kinds of movement stuff, and acting as well. So one of the things that I saw afterwards was I almost became numb to what my legs were doing. Like, I had gotten so used to standing up that because I no longer see my physical legs, I don't see, like, where there should be, hard surfaces. Maybe there should be grass below me, and suddenly my brain thinks to myself, this is a soft surface. So my feet shouldn't feel any pain coming from that. I would sometimes be around water, and I'd almost expect that my leg should have a trickle of water on it after I've stepped onto the sand from the location. And then it almost became to where, as long as I had noticed that every interaction my legs were doing, my hands were doing, my entire body was doing, I should be feeling that. So phantom sense became a lot more predominant, because now whenever you go into VR with just a sense of just the controllers and the headset, you know where everything up top is, because it makes sense. If you touch your arm like this, I'm touching my arm in game. But now in full body, I would touch my leg, and that's my actual knee. And that made me feel like this is now my new body. Cute as can be, but whatever. The point I try to get across is just I did. Oh, got a point?
Oh, just something that just jumped in my head. Wouldn't that make a great Dorito commercial? Doing a VR marathon? Doritos.
Okay, definitely a sponsor right there. I see where you're going. That's a good idea. There you go. Ad revenue.
Only the red kind, though.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, no Cool Ranch.
Oh God, no, we're getting spicy here.
See you for using that brand. I mean,
Yeah, do you think the next objective for you then would be to do a full body version? Have you ever done full body before?
A month.
I think I'm gonna let someone else take the month.
That's probably wise.
Yeah.
I'll get with your people.
But it is. Yeah.
Dude, once
So I
you
have-
go full
I
body, once you go full body, you can't go back. I'm just saying.
I have just a
Okay, so Eve and then Freeman and then Rejinx.
Yeah, just real quickly. So if you think about the world and people in reality and people in virtual reality, it seems like there's a divide, right? And unless you have someone who's in both, where you know them on, outside of VR and you know them inside, that there's a whole world of people that you are not going to be interacting with when you're in virtual reality and they're in the outside world. And I see that as an issue, and I don't know what I think about it, but there is a kind of divide between the relationships you have outside and inside, and rarely do the two meet. They sometimes do. But have you thought about that and have any ideas, particularly after being in VR for a week?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's almost like a repeat of what I imagined birth of the internet was like. It's from the stuff I've read and seen online. It almost directly relates. Like, people would have these online interactions and, completely different from their IRL friends or family. So I think as the technology advances, I think we'll begin to see that sort of divide dissolve as our world becomes more and more connected in this new kind of dimension that we all have.
If we're all wearing contact lenses that have the VR and the AR in them whenever we want, then yeah, I can see those. Coming.
And also,
the divide won't be as severe.
And I'm just curious again, another very quick poll, but like, how many people here have actually met someone that they met him in VR and then they met them in real life afterwards, and they didn't know them in real life beforehand? I'm just curious.
Thumbs up if you.
Because I'm curious. Because you've said it's rare, but I'm just curious how rare it is actually. Interesting. Well, about half. It seems like about half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That count?
Counts.
Yeah. Yes, we've met.
That's 20 years ago.
It's interesting. It's cool because when you meet them, the relationship really does transfer over. But also, what you're saying about old technologies, I know Eve, you used that old chat system that was like some crazy chat system, but then you realized like, why am I? You took a class to do that, and then you were like. Wait, I don't want to talk to these people or something. You were like, why am I talking to these?
Thought about no, that's a totally different topic. But I thought about getting a CB radio, a ham radio.
Oh.
This is many years ago, and I went to meet the people who were doing ham radio, and I realized that this particular group, I don't really have much in common with them, so why would I bother to talk to them with ham radio when I wouldn't talk to them if they were in the same room with me? And I think that was the sort of really, and that's not to put down operators with ham radio, but it is the case. Yeah,
That's another kind of divide,
that did happen.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
Okay,
So yeah, we're heading towards the end here.
Then Rejinx, and then we gotta be done. So.
And Kals, I see you're in line. But,
no, I've got nothing more to say.
Oh, you said it?
Yeah,
you did. You were in line. Okay.
Okay. All right. Rejinx.
So actually, extrapolating more, it's I guess kind of off of the CB point can be extrapolated off of, but I do think that a lot of reasons people spend extremely long periods of time in VR, other than just experience part of the experience, but is that it gives you a social interaction that's unavailable in the real world to people who feel like the average person around them isn't their social group. And it's much easier for social groups who are more niche to find each other online. As the technology gets better, do you think VR lifestyles, like how long do you think we are away from VR lifestyles where what you're doing there's no longer going to be a stunt, it's going to be just the way some people live their lives? And do you see that as positive, negative, or neutral?
Yeah, great question. I think
This is a good final question.
I hate to make future predictions, but I think over the next 20 years, like as the technology advances and incorporates into our life easier, it'll be easier and easier to incorporate into the daily life. And I think we'll see both negativity, whether it be extreme like escapism, where one is kind of throwing off IRL duties, but we'll also see advancements, whether it be increases in productivity or creativity. So yeah, it's sort of the the black and white, yin and yang of a new technology.
Interesting.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts for us?
For Chaos, does Chaos have a really last?
Okay, Chaos.
last
Do you have a
question,
final
or?
thought for us, really quick?
Yeah, sort of quick. You mentioned making friends in VR. I've only used VR once, but I've still met a lot of people that use VR, and have like half the people over here are like all my friends. But some people I've known now for over a year, and I would say I've made best friends with them. I haven't really met them in real life, but I definitely know enough about them that I feel like I could say, if somebody asked me who are your best friends, I could say that some people on here would be the best friends. And it's especially since I live in a dorm, it's kind of like it gets kind of lonely, just being up in a room alone. So having that social interaction between people in VR is very helpful and nice to have.
Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the most
You're
exciting things
part of our
about this
fam.
technology.
That's it. Part of our endgame
that-
fam.
It
Yeah.
yeah, connects us.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Well, yeah, thanks for coming on, and
Thanks for
also if you guys, we have a vibrant discussion community in a Discord channel called Deep Thoughts. So if you go to endgamevr.com, you can you can get to a Discord. Yes. And lastly, we should take a group picture.
Yeah, let's get a group
So
photo.
thanks everyone for coming
Come on up
too.
here to
This
the
is
stage.
we do Endgame every other Wednesday, so different discussions and topics. Yeah, let's take a group picture. Yeah, come. Everyone looks the same to me because I had to turn on my safety. Because I was lagging out, so.
Yeah, that happens.
Whoa.
What should we say?
Baloney.
I'm thinking, give me a second.
Into the metaverse. Wait, we've already done that one.
I'm gonna be dabbing either way.
VR for weeks.
Oh my
How
God,
about VR for weeks.
VR for weeks.
I like that.
VR for weeks. All right.
Alright, everyone, look to this tiny little dot that you may or may not see in my hand right here, and we're gonna take a picture in 3, 2, 1.
I always love this endgame VR.
VR for
Alright, keep
Yeah,
holding.
and
Keep
baloney.
holding.
Thanks, everyone,
Keep
for coming.
holding. Okay, I'm just joking.
Oh,
You're good.
just kidding.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, my thighs hurt.
Oh my God.
Endgame VR
thighs
guy.
hurt.
Love.
It feels like I got
Thanks, Jack, for coming
my
on.
keyboard's all tilted. Oh, thanks for having me. Great.
okay.
Yeah, that was really cool. All right, I'm gonna try to turn off my safety settings.
let's turn
You
off
know, midnight.
Every road
Oh, man.
has
That
its
must have been a
dawn.
good one.
I'm lagging out so
So much
Yeah, Freeman, I thought you were about to say something. I wasn't sure.
Okay, good.
That's silly man.
Oh no, I literally I've forgotten.
Doing all that.
Your eyes scare the shit out of you.
I know. I need to update them. They're really bad.